Now, these are starting to get to a point where we'll be able to harvest them. I can feel the beans inside, and you can see that they are turning a brown colour. Yours may already be like this, because I know a lot of you have planted your beans before us. We have to wait for our peas to finish. Well, I wouldn't personally, but Mrs. W tells me I must wait till the peas finish. So ours are just that little bit further behind. But that's okay. They'll get there. And by saving your own seed, you haven't got to buy it next year. And I have to say, these have been some of the best plants that we've actually grown for several years, haven't they?
Yes.
And it is quite noticeable that it's come from the seed we saved from last year, which is amazing. These are some broad bean seeds that we saved earlier this year. And we found exactly the same with our broad beans this year. They were some of the best harvests that we've ever had. And all by saving your own seed. Now, in today's programme, I have some sowing to do, and I also have some planting to do, so that we can finish the month of October. Everything is in place. Hello and welcome back to the No Dig Norfolk Gardener. You join us in our No Dig Norfolk Garden the very last weekend of October. By Thursday next week, it'll be Halloween. We've got the grandchildren for a few days next week, haven't we, Mrs. W?
We have, yeah. It's half-term week, so have them for a couple of days during the week to help out the parents, yeah.
Better do some pumpkin carving.
Yes.
They do like that, don't they? They do. Now, I need to plant our elephant garlic. A bit earlier on in the month, of course, we planted our normal garlic, which went into the greenhouse. But the elephant garlic doesn't seem to suffer in the same way that our normal garlic does. Look at the size of those, look.
Massive, aren't they? They're true to their name. Elephant-sized.
Now, we probably started off 2 years ago growing elephant garlic for the first time. We started with just the one bulb. We tasted one bulb and thought, actually, that's not so bad, and then kept the rest. So we've got to a point now where we've built our stock up. And these two heads that you see here, well, that's exactly what we saved from this year's harvest. We shall do the same again next year, and then that should be enough for us to continue planting the amount of elephant garlic that we want to do. Now, elephant garlic is not as strong as the normal garlic that you grow.
No, it's quite a mild garlic flavour, the elephant garlic is, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's more closely related to the leek family, isn't it?
Yes.
But still very well worth growing. And we actually quite enjoy the taste of it in certain recipes, don't we? Where you don't want such a pungent smell.
And when your mum comes round, because she doesn't like garlic much, does she?
Very true, very true.
So we sneak a little bit of the elephant garlic in because it's not as strong.
Now, these are grown in much the same way as you would your normal garlic. That's the basil plate, that's where the roots are going to come from. Then at the top where you see the tassel, that is where the leaf is going to come from. Clearly these are much larger than normal garlic. And you follow the same rules in that you want to make sure this is buried beneath the ground. And the hole needs to be big enough to be able to accommodate that. Now when I planted the garlic in the greenhouse, you saw me put that into the holes, and then I covered the surface with our compost. That's exactly the same that will happen here. So this is down a nice fair way. And we should just cover it over, and then I shall put a layer of compost on top. And when it comes to my no dig Norfolk garden, of course, I'm not going to dig. Really, it's all about disturbing the soil as least as possible. Because sometimes I need to do things. And in this case, I want to move this celery up into the polytunnel. We did this last year, and we were taking pickings from this celery all the way up till the following February and March. And that's really quite something. I don't want to turn the soil over, but just by loosening the plant, I can then have that up with its roots and then put it up into the poly. And these have done really well for us this season. Just from these 3 plants, they've been keeping myself and Mrs. W going. We mainly use celery for that classic basic recipe of onion, celery and carrot, which goes on to enhance the flavour of your soups, your sauces, your stocks. Now what I have done is pre-watered the hole. Celery does not like to dry out. And although I often say over the winter period don't water your plants quite so much, if you're going to do this, don't let the celery dry out, because they grow around the sides of rivers in their native place, don't they, in boggy places?
Yep, they do.
So do ensure that that's the case. So pop that into the hole. Just fill it in and firm it in, and then we should give it another good drink of water. And we shall be able to go on enjoying the taste of our celery. Ooh, well into March next year. Now, I don't know how many of you actually overwinter your broad beans, or you'll probably know them in other parts of the world as fava beans. But they are a plant that you can successfully overwinter. They're generally quite frost hardy. But of course, if you really do have extreme frosts, and we only get down to about -5 or 6 here, that's centigrade of course, and they cope with that quite well. A couple of years back we actually had quite a few nights of sort of -10s, didn't we?
We did.
And
it did check them, didn't it?
Yeah, it did check them, but we still got a great harvest from them, and we tend to keep them covered. Even if it's a mild winter, we keep them covered all of the time through the winter months, generally with some Enviromesh. You could use fleece. Indeed, if you're in a colder climate, fleece might be more appropriate for you than the Enviromesh that we use. But I always think it's well worth trying to do if you possibly can. Why? You get a slightly earlier harvest. They come out that little bit earlier out of the ground, and they free up that ground for you to be able to grow something else in. And if, like us, you save your own seed, why wouldn't you? It's not cost you anything. So you might as well give it a try. And if they do fail, well, you can re-sow again from February onwards and get those lovely broad beans. It's really quite simple. All you do is lay the seed on top and push it down. And that's the job done. It's very easy, very, very simple. Mrs. W, of course, will say that they should go like that.
Yeah, I would always put them on their side.
But have we ever had a failure?
No, we
of
haven't.
broad
No,
beans?
it's just you kind of get used to things, how you do things, don't you? It's just a habit, really, I suppose.
It's how we were taught really by our parents,
Yes,
wasn't it?
yeah.
You know, so you tend to get used to doing things exactly the same way as they do them. But both ways work really, really well. And what I am doing is sowing them in these deep modules that we have. They do have quite a long taproot, longer than you think on a broad bean. And so it's fine to grow them in other modules. We've done it before. It's just that I had the option of purchasing these earlier on this year, and they've worked really well. They work well for these, and they work really well for the peas, don't they?
They did, yeah.
And you know that they've got a really decent root system when you come to plant these out. And all you need to do is just to cover them with some compost, and they will be absolutely fine. I'm going to pop them in some water. Actually, I haven't filled it up yet, so let's just do that. You could actually quite easily water from above. These are large seeds, they're not going to go anywhere, but I always prefer to water from the bottom, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'll know that in an hour or so's time all of that compost will be thoroughly moistened and the seeds will be able to germinate. Let's get the labels in, Mrs. W. They'll take about a week to 12 days and they'll be through. And I shall look to plant them out into their final growing positions toward the end of November, even into the first week of December. Very much depends on what our weather is like. It might be frosty toward the end of November and the beginning of December, so we may have to delay them. I've done that before, but they'll be perfectly happy growing away in those modules until we have the correct conditions to be able to put those out. And this year we got a harvest. We were harvesting these in mid-May, weren't we?
They were quite early, weren't they?
They were quite early, and you've probably seen, if you're a regular viewer, that following those are our sprouts. They're really well, quite advanced, because these were out that much earlier. I think we'd finished harvesting during mid-June, whereas normally it's toward the end of June when that happens. So the sprouts really are looking quite good. And that reminds me, do keep an eye on what we're putting out, because Mrs. W has a quirky little recipe for some sprouts that I think you're going to like in the run-up to Christmas. And if you want to know more about that and everything else that we do here on our No Dig Norfolk garden, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. But also, just as importantly, turn on those notifications, hit that bell, because then you'll know that you'll be notified whenever we upload a video. Do let us know in the comments what you've been up to, because we're really quite pleased with ourselves. Here we are, last weekend in October, and actually every piece of planting is done that we wanted to do. As we move into November, we can actually get on with some jobs that we want to be getting on with, small little changes that we want to make to our garden. And November is an ideal month. So do look out for our top tips for the month of November. Do have a great gardening week, and we shall see you all again very soon.